Hi everyone, it is time to talk about all the books that I read in the month of October. I participated in 3 readathons in October and I ended up reading about 11 books. Most of them were on my TBR. However, for the last week of the month, I decided to mood read and kind of leave my TBRs behind because I was not having very much success. Up until that point, I was having a very mid-month, lots of 3-star reads, nothing really exciting. So I just needed to mood read and get myself some books that I really was more excited about. And luckily that did ratchet up the star ratings and give me some reads that did score a lot higher than the ones I read earlier in the month. But let's sit down, let's look at these 11 books, and we are going to start from my lowest rated all the way to those ones that kind of helped me kick myself out of the slump that I was feeling like I was falling into. I only had one 2-star book, and it was a horror read, which I am not a big horror reader, so it could be potentially just that the genre is not my jam. However, I do think that the story was a little lackluster and kind of hard to follow because there was so much side stuff going on. That book was The Monster of Elden Haven. This book follows Johan, and Johan has some horrible things happen to him as a child, and then he finds out that he has somehow become basically immortal. He cannot die. Then he teams up with like a magician or a sorcerer, and they decide to work together to make a pandemic situation to make more immortal people. And I feel like that story got very lost, and it's almost hard for me to even remember that that was the main plot of the book because there were so many little side things going on in this book that muddled it up. And this book is very short. There isn't room to have all this other side conflicts and side characters that made it hard to really even see the plot of the story. And that was really why it got 2 stars. I was intrigued in the general idea, but I do feel like it got lost, and really the entire story was completely not memorable. And considering how out there the plot is, it should have been memorable, but it wasn't. I don't really have anything else to say about this. It was a really short book. I read it in one afternoon and I didn't really like it, so 2 stars. I only had one 3-star book for the month, and unfortunately, it is a 3-star that I was not expecting to be a 3. It is by one of my most favorite authors, and it is Olivia Blake's One for My Enemy. I love Olivia Blake. I'm excited to read more. The writing style of this really worked for me because I already know I love Olivia Blake's writing style. However, this story really lost itself halfway through. It's a Romeo and Juliet retelling, and I was really interested in this fated love story that was doomed to fail, and I loved the character work, and I loved the love and the tragedy of it and the sadness of it. And the first 2 acts of this, because it's written in acts and scenes, broke me. It broke me. I teared up. It was so emotional. Then the second half of this book took a turn, and it veered into their 2 families and the vendetta of their families, which I do realize is part of the story, but the way it was handled in this book lost me. It really felt like the plot was just constantly trying to redirect my attention in a different way for the characters and also for me as a reader. We'd think one thing was happening, and then we'd find out something else was really happening, and then we'd think that was happening, and then we find out something else was really happening. It was really hard to know what we were supposed to know. And that just lost me near the end of the book. Really, the second half of this book was just not as strong as the first half, and it got a 3-star rating for me. I had 3 books that got 3.5-star ratings. The first one was the B&K Book Club book, which is Sherry Lupina's What Have You Done? This mystery was written really well. I really enjoyed how it was plotted and the different storylines that we were following. In this book, we follow Diana Brewster and her murder. She has been found murdered in a field by a farmer, and we are trying to find out who did this. It's a very small town. People don't lock their doors. They don't expect a murder to happen. But this teenage girl has been found murdered, and we need to figure out what happened, who in her life wanted her dead, and we look into her boyfriend, people at her school, people at her job, trying to figure this out. We do also have a point of view from her looking on to her murder, which was a really interesting storyline to have. However, there was one way that this story was plotted, which I wish it wouldn't have been, which I will not say what it is because it is quite a spoiler to who the murderer is. But because of how it was plotted, it was glaringly obvious to me, and it did detract from my enjoyment of the book following the storyline. And I think It really could have been avoided. But that's definitely a personal preference thing and the reason I gave it 3.5 stars, because overall I think the mystery was really good. There was just something that made me not give it a 4. Just that one thing that made me kind of bring it down that half-star rating. I do love a Shari Lapena book. I will continue to read a Shari Lapena book because every time I do really still enjoy them, and they're good palate cleansers overall. I also read Bonded by Thorns by Elizabeth Helen, and I should have loved this book. I really, really should have. It's a Why Choose Beauty and the Beast retelling. I should have adored this. I should have lapped it up. Which the second half of the book I did. I did devour the second half, and I really did enjoy the second half of the book a lot more than the first. The first half of this book really sticks to the Disney version of the story so closely to the point that there are literally quotes. The dialogue is literally verbatim. And for me, that was just too close to the Disney to really give it its own story. It veered in the middle, and it really did capture my attention in the middle to the end, which did make me already pick up the second book when it was on an Audible sale. So I'm definitely going to be continuing with this series. And I do think I will love the later books in the series a lot more than I like the first. I think had we started with the vibes of the second half, this book would have potentially been a 5-star read for me. But the first part really let me down a little bit with it being just too similar. Instead of giving me nods to the Beauty and the Beast story, it literally spoon-fed me the Beauty and the Beast story, and that's just not how I like retellings. But the second half was fire, and I cannot wait to see what book 2 does. My last 3.5 star may surprise most people because I know this is a much loved series, and that is The Final Empire and Mistborn Book 1. This was my first Brandy Sandy. I've already started book 2, so I'm not giving up on the series just yet, but there was just something about this that did not work for me. I'm not a huge high story person, so that may be part of it, but I have liked high stories in the past. But I felt like the constant going over the magic system and the allomancy felt overkill to me and just felt super repetitive. We just kept going over what every metal did, and it felt like we were rehashing it too much for something that isn't really that complex of a magic system, in my opinion. I know a lot of people will disagree with me on that, but it just felt a bit repetitive. However, I do think as I read through the books, I'm going to see how Brandy Sandy's writing style changes and grows, and maybe I will get less of that throughout the later books. I've been told that that will be the case. So I'm not giving up hope on the Cosmere just yet. I'm excited to continue with Vin's story. I like this world, and I like what it's trying to do. It just felt like it could have been edited down like a good 100 pages. I ended up having 4 4-star books in the month, and 2 of them you have not seen the vlogs for yet, so we're not going to talk too in-depthly about those 2 books. So let's start with those. That vlog will come out after this video. It will literally be my next video in like 2 days once you see this, but it is after this. The first one of those is Fake It Till You Bake It by Jamie Wesley. This is a baking romance that is also a sports romance. Do not read this when you are hungry. It's a lot of cupcake talk. There's a lot. I love a baking romance. I love a sports romance. And I really did enjoy this book. I had a really good time with it. Again, you will see all of my thoughts in an upcoming vlog, but I am definitely going to be continuing with this. The sequel comes out in November, so I've already put in a pre-order for that. The other one that will be in that vlog is A Girl Like Her by Talia Hibbert. I love a Talia Hibbert book. This one is no exception. This one follows Ruth. Ruth has autism, lives in a small town. Everybody knows her business. And this town is horrible to her. They are horrible to her. They kind of ostracize her, and I hated this town. Most of the people. There were some really nice people in this town too, but a lot of them were not it. Evan is new to town. He moves in next door to Ruth, and he actually gets to know her, and they fall in love, and I just love their romance and love their story. I mean, it's Talia. I will always love a Talia Hibbert book. I also ended up reading You Again by Kate Goldbeck. Gave this one 4 stars as well. This is a Harry Met Sally retelling, and it was really interesting for a contemporary romance. These 2 characters had a lot of things happening through their life that impacted their romance, and they had a lot of things they had to work through. In this book, we follow Ari and Josh, and we see Ari and Josh meet each other like 8 years prior to their romance, and they do not get along because they are sleeping with the same person. They keep meeting each other every couple of years, and we see these instances, just like a quick little snapshot of them meeting each other somewhere in New York for like 8 years. And they do not get along at most of these occurrences. Then in the current timeline, they meet. Ari has just had a divorce. Josh has just had a breakup, and also he's just lost his business. There's a lot going on in both their lives, and they decide to just be friends and be there for each other. They go out for a slice of pizza, and their friendship and their relationship grows. But they really have a lot to work through in order for them to actually have a relationship, and this is a big, big, big slow burn. But it was authentic to their characters and everything that they were going through. It really gave me those New York fall vibes. And I really did like these characters, and I really liked seeing how they kind of changed and grew over the course of like 8 years. 4 stars, would highly recommend, would also really recommend reading in the fall. I do really think it's a really atmospheric fall read. My last 4-star book was a novella, part of the Impossible Meet Cute series, and that was The Worst Wingman Ever by Abby Jimenez. This book follows Holly, and I think it's Josh, something with a J. It's not in the synopsis, and I forgot this main character's name really fast. He puts a note on her car. It's a Valentine that was meant for his brother's Valentine. His brother asked him to give the Valentine to his girlfriend. He puts it on the wrong car. He puts it on Holly's car. Holly is only at the apartment where he was supposed to find the correct car because she's doing hospice for her grandmother, and that was really heartbreaking to watch. Holly's story with her family and watching her take care of her grandmother in her last days really just pulled at the heartstrings and really added something to this story. Josh finds out he puts this on the wrong car. He leaves another note saying, "I'm so sorry that I did that." And they keep passing notes on the car until they eventually meet and realize that they are the notes people. Since this is a meet cute series, it's a novella, these stories only go until they actually meet and then the stories end. I kind of wish we could continue on with these romances because I get invested in the characters and I kind of want to keep going with them. But I really did like it. I really want to keep reading more of these novellas. They're all by different authors. So as I need a quick book here or there or a quick audiobook, these are always a great thing to grab. Now, I had 2 5-star reads this month, and they were both in the same week, back-to-back reads. When I finally decided to throw out my plans for the month and just mood read for the week, I had some lovely, lovely times. The first 5-star I had this month was Business Casual by B.K. Borson. This is the last and final book in the Love Light Farm series, and it is my favorite. I've given 3 5-stars in this series, so it's a series that I do love and an author that I do really appreciate. The small town of Inglewild is top tier. They are the quirky small town vibes that you want from a small town romance. Charlie is a flirt, but like a flirt with heart. Nova is tough and she wants to do things on her own, but she's also overworked and is letting Charlie in to help her, and the two of them come together in like the cutest way. Charlie also has ADHD, so we love seeing that representation. Nova has chronic migraines, and I really enjoyed seeing that representation in this book as well. Their romance was bantery, it was flirty, it's a one-night stand that grows into more, and the smut was smutting. And on top of that, by the end of the book, I was bawling because we just wrapped up the town of Inglewild in the series of Love Light Farms in the perfect way. I highly recommend picking up B.K. Borson's books. I mean, out of 4, I gave 3 of them 5 stars. So like clearly I really love it. And I would recommend it to most people who like a small town romance. And my second 5-star read of the month was a sequel to a book that I adore, Ashes of the Sun. It's going to be my favorite book of the year, and I have to read the whole series before I make that list. And that is Blood of the Chosen by Django Wexler. This 5 stars. I do think I love the first book a little tiny bit more. There was a little bit more banter, a little bit more sarcasm in the first book that I really do appreciate. But this book just had me going, what is happening so much? And by the end of this book, what is going to happen in the third book? I have no idea, but I need to find time to pick up Emperor of Ruin. Like, I need to find time. I need to know how this ends. I need to know what happens to my characters. I need to know. So many things happened at the end of this book that I was just like, what? This series is going to go down as one of my favorite fantasy series of all time, and I cannot wait to see the conclusion of it, but like also I don't, because I don't want it to end. So like I need to know, but like I don't want to know. That's where we're at with this book. But that is the 11 books that I read in October. I ended up reading 3,784 pages, and I am about to dive into my November TBR. What was your favorite read from October? What was a 5-star book for you? If you didn't have a 5-star, what was like your highest rated book? Let me know down in the description box below. I love knowing how your month went just as well as mine. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.